everyone, this is Marika and welcome back to another session of Community Health Nursing with me. In our previous session, we have discussed a very interesting topic which is communication, different types of communication and different barriers of communication. In this session today, we are going to discuss a very interesting topic which is marriage and marriage system. We are going to see in detail what is marriage, what is the definition of marriage, what are the different types of marriages and what are the advantages and disadvantages of different types of marriage. We will also discuss about problems in marriage or problems of marriage. But before we move on to today's topic, let us quickly recall what we have studied in our previous session. We've discussed about communication, where we have seen that communication is a process of exchange of ideas, thoughts, beliefs, values, and information between two or more individuals. Communication is a process of exchanging your ideas and thoughts with the other person, and communication is the most important part of human life as we are a social animal. Communication process has 5 major elements, which is the sender, the receiver, the message, the channel, and the feedback. The sender is the person who sends the message. The receiver is the person who receives the message. The message is the content of communication, and the medium that is used in order to communicate the message, in order to convey the information, is called as channel of communication. A feedback is a response that is given by the receiver after receiving the message from the sender. We've also seen that communication is of different types, which includes formal communication, informal communication, one-way communication, two-way communication, upward communication, downward communication, horizontal communication, and verbal and non-verbal communication. Even though communication is one of the most important aspects of a human's life, communication has certain barriers. The major barriers of communication are cultural barriers, physiological barriers, psychological barrier, and environmental barrier. I hope you've understood the entire topic of communication properly. Moving on, let us see what is marriage. First, let us start with what does marriage means. Then we'll see about the types and advantages and disadvantages of different types of marriage. Marriage is a legally recognized union of two people as partners in their personal relationship. So marriage is a legally recognized union of two people as partners in personal relationship. Marriage is considered as a sacred institution. Marriage is also called as matrimony, and it is a cultural and also legally recognized union of two people who are called as spouses. And as I said, especially in our country, India, marriage is done by an individual following a certain tradition and a ritual. There is a certain culture an individual follow. Each and every individual will have different culture, different tradition. And when we get married, especially in India, we see that we follow our culture and tradition. I hope you've got the basic idea of what marriage is. Marriage is a union of two people as partners in their personal relationship. Marriage is culturally as well as legally recognized. Two people involved in marriage is called as spouses. Marriage is a sacred institution, and when we talk about our country India, in India, marriages usually is conducted according to the culture and certain ritual of the individual. Moving on, let us see the definition of marriage. Marriage is an approved social pattern wherein two people establish a family. So marriage is done in order to establish a family. Marriage is a socially approved system wherein two people come together in order to establish a family. This definition is given by Horton and Hunt. Marriage, as I said, is a sacred institution and it is a usual social custom in India. And in India, the age for the men to get married is 21 years and for the girls it is 18 years. Until and unless the boy is 21 years old and until and unless the girl is 18 years old, they are not allowed to marry. The permitted age for the girl and the boy to get married is 18 and 21 years respectively in India. I hope you've understood what is marriage and what is the definition of marriage. Moving on, let us see what are the different types of marriage. There are basically 6 different types of marriage that includes polyandry, polygyny, endogamy, exogamy, monogamy, and companionate marriage. We are going to see in detail about each of these types of marriage. The first one we have is polyandry. Polyandry is a form of marriage or a type of marriage in which one woman marries many men at a given time. So at one time, the woman marries many times. That is polyandry. In polyandry as well, we have two different types of polyandry. The polyandry type of marriage is again divided into further two types. The first one is fraternal polyandry and another one is non-fraternal polyandry. So the first type of marriage that we have discussed is polyandry. Polyandry is a form of marriage in which one single woman marries many men at a given time. Polyandry is of two different types, which is fraternal polyandry and non-fraternal polyandry. What is fraternal polyandry and what is non-fraternal polyandry? In fraternal polyandrous marriage, the husbands will be brothers and the offspring will be considered from the eldest brother. The second type of polyandrous marriage is non-fraternal polyandrous marriage. In this form of marriage, again, a single woman marries many men at a time, but the men or the husbands are not brothers. And a special ritual is conducted in order to decide the father of the offsprings. I hope you've understood what is fraternal polyandry and what is non-fraternal polyandry. In non-fraternal polyandry, the husbands will not be brother and a special ritual will be performed in order to select the father of the offspring. Moving on, let us see the advantage of polyandry marriage. The first advantage is that population control can be achieved through polyandrous marriage. So only one single woman is married to different men. So it is the woman who bears the child. Therefore, population control can be achieved through polyandrous marriage. The second advantage of polyandrous marriage is that there will be less chances of dispute related to the property, as the family's property will not get divided. Let us move on and see the disadvantage of polyandrous marriage. This type of marriage obviously has various health impacts on the health of the woman. It will affect the health of the woman. There are chances for the woman to suffer from various diseases such as pelvic inflammatory disease and other sexually transmitted diseases. As the female has multiple sexual partners, there's a chance that she might have sexually transmitted disease. Polyandry in Himalayan regions followed earlier because of scarcity of land. The marriage of all the brothers to the same woman allows the family land or the family property to remain undivided. Because if every brother marries to a different woman and have children, then the family land will be distributed, the property of the family will be distributed. But here in polyandry, one single female is married to the brothers in the family. Therefore, the offspring are either considered of the eldest brother or a special ritual is performed in order to select as the father of the offspring. Therefore, the land of the family is not divided to several individuals. For this reason, polyandry was found in Himalayan mountains earlier. The second type of marriage is polygyny. Now, polygyny is opposite to polyandrous. Polygyny is opposite of polyandrous. In polyandrous, one single woman was married to multiple men at a time, whereas in polygyny, one single man will be married to several women at a time. When we talk about our country, India, we see that polygyny is still followed in Muslim communities. In Muslim communities, men are allowed to have more than one wife, so it is still followed in Muslim communities, whereas in Hindu custom, it was followed at times of rules of the king. Kings used to capture the woman by force and force her to marry with her. Sometimes they even purchased women in order to marry with them. Polygyny is a type of marriage in which a single man marries to many different women at a given time, and it is still prevalent in Muslim communities in India. Now let us move on and see the advantage of polygyny. The first advantage of polygyny is that children in a polygynous marriage is usually looked after better, as there are multiple females to take care of the children. So multiple women are involved in taking care of the kid in polygyny, therefore children are better looked after. That is the first advantage of polygyny. The second advantage of polygyny is that polygyny leads to division of labor among the wives in domestic work of the families. If there's any kind of work that is to be carried out within the family, the work is divided among the wives. So there will be division of labor among the wives, among the females in polygynous marriage. Moving on, let us see the disadvantage of polygyny. Polygyny form of marriage, of course, has various health impact on the health of the man as well as on the woman. As there will be multiple sexual partners involved, there are high chances of acquiring sexually transmitted diseases. Another disadvantage of polygyny is that it lowers the status of women in the society. The third disadvantage of polygynous type of marriage is that it increases the burden on the head of the family, because it becomes difficult for the head of the family or the bread earner of the family to maintain many wives and children. And finally, jealousy, hatred, and conflicts are found among the wives as they are not able to understand and adjust with one another. So these are the various advantages and disadvantages of second type of marriage, which is polygyny. The next type of marriage we have is monogamy. Monogamy is a system of marriage. It is a type of marriage in which one man marries only one woman at a time. So monogamy is one of the most common marriages, most common form of marriage that is found in today's world. One man marries only one woman at a given time. And there are various advantages of monogamy. The first advantage of monogamy is parents can give proper attention to the upbringing of the children. When there are two partners involved in upbringing the children, their proper attention is provided to the children. Therefore, the attention that is required by the children at the early stage of development will be provided in monogamy. The second advantage of monogamy is that there will be development of affection and sincere devotion towards one another in monogamy, because there are no other partners involved. Only two partners have come together and have started a family. Therefore, there will be a sincere devotion and affection towards one another. Let us also see the disadvantage of monogamy. Many a times it is found that there is higher chance of extramarital affair in case of monogamy. So that is the only disadvantage of monogamy. Another type of marriage that we have is exogamy. Exogamy is a form of marriage. It is a type of marriage where a man seeks a wife outside of his clan, which means a man marries a girl, marries a woman out of his community, out of his clan, marries a woman out of his community, out of his clan, or out of his tribe. The next type of marriage we have is endogamy. From the term itself, we can understand that endogamy is opposite to exogamy. In endogamy, the marriage is performed within the same caste and the same class. In India, the endogamy type of marriage is most commonly followed. Even to now, the endogamy is still followed in different parts of India because people usually marry within the same caste and within the same class. For example, in India, the Brahmins only get married to Brahmins. Intercaste marriage or an interclass marriage is prohibited. So endogamy is one of the most commonly followed form or type of marriage even to this date in India. The last type of marriage that we have is companionate marriage. What is companionate marriage? Companionate marriage is a form of marriage in which, on the basis of mutual understanding, the partners can dissolve the marriage with mutual consent until and unless they have a children together. So if two partners are involved, if two partners are married and do not have the children, they can dissolve the marriage on the basis of understanding with mutual consent. Moving on, let us see the advantage of companionate marriage. Companionate marriage, like monogamy, prioritize the communication and support between two partners. And the disadvantage of companionate marriage is that the marriage is also quick and the divorce is also quick. In companionate marriage, we see that the divorce rate is much higher. Those are the different types of marriage. Now, every form of marriage, every type of marriage has certain advantages as well as certain disadvantages. Some form of marriage has impact on physical as well as psychological health. Polyandry and polygyny type of marriage is considered as an obstacle in the way of social progress. That is the reason why it is not followed to this date. In case of polygyny, it creates various psychological problems because of jealousy and stress among the family members. Psychological problems are also seen to be associated with companionate marriage because of quick divorce. Sometimes one of the partner may be highly involved in the marriage. As we know, in companionate marriage, the divorce rate is very high. Because of the divorce, it may create some kind of psychological problem in the person who is deeply involved in that relationship. And sometimes the partner that is selected by the parent may not be the right kind of partner for the person in case of arranged marriages, which can lead to unhappiness in the family. And even in case of love marriages, sometimes the partner that is chosen may not be the right partner for an individual. And the Hindu Marriage Act of 1955 have made it possible for the woman to divorce her husband. So as I said, marriage was considered as a sacred bond and it was considered as a bond that cannot be dissolved. Earlier, even though women were not given the same kind of status in the marriage, even though women were abused, they had to stay in the marriage. But now, because of social development, Hindu Marriage Act of 1955, it is possible for a woman to divorce a man. Now, when a woman is not able to live with the person she's married because of the development, she's able to divorce the person. But these divorces have increased the number of psychological psychological problem that is found because of the instability in the family. Now, as I said earlier, women, even though they were abused, they were not given the status and they did not have the right to divorce. But now, as the world is developed, women can divorce the man if she cannot live with him. But this increasing number of divorce has also increased psychological problem because of the instability in the family. I hope you understand what is marriage and what are the different types of marriage. Moving on, let us see what are the problems in marriage. Moving on, let us see what are the problems in marriage. The very first problem in marriage is that women do not enjoy equal rights when compared to men. It may be in social, political, religious, as well as economic field. The second problem of marriage is concerned with the type of marriage, endogamy. In endogamy, we know that a person is supposed to get married within the same community or within the same clan. Intercaste marriages or interclass marriages are not allowed. Now, in terms of endogamy, when there's an individual who falls in love with the person of another community, then it may lead to various problems in the family. It may lead to murders, it may lead to honor killing, and several disputes within the family. Another problem related to marriage is the dowry system. Dowry system is very prevalent in India, and due to the system of dowry, when parents are not able to have enough money in order to get their daughter married, sometimes they may have to marry their daughter to a person who is not fit for her age, education, and health. Dowry is one of the most common problems, especially in India. Dowry Provision Act is already present, but even then it is seen that dowry system is still prevalent in many parts of the world, and it is still prevalent in our country, India. So that is it for today's class. In today's session, we have discussed about marriage, different types of marriage, and problems that are faced in marriage. We've seen that marriage is a sacred institution in which two individuals come together and as a partner establish a family together. There are different types of marriage, and every type of marriage has certain advantage as well as disadvantage. And we ended the session with a discussion on problems in marriage. I hope the class was helpful, and I'll see you all in the next session. Thank you and have a great day ahead.